remember the weight of the world, it's a sound that we used to buy on cassette and 45.
Is the beginning of The Long Fall of Flight 111 Heavy by Michael Paterniti. And it appears in his latest collection, Love and Other Ways of Dying, as well as in a magazine earlier. It was summer, it was winter. The village disappeared behind skeins of fog. Fishermen came and went in boats named Reverence, Granite Prince, Sou'wester. The ocean, which was green and wild, carried the vessels out past Jack Rock Bank toward Pearl Island in the open sea. In the village, on the shelf of rock, stood a lighthouse, whitewashed and octagonal with a red turret. Its green light beamed over the green sea, and sometimes, in the thickest fog or heaviest storm, that was all the fishermen had of land, this green eye dimly flashing in the night. All they had of home and how to get there, that was the question. There were nights when that was the only question. This northerly village, this place here of 60 people, the houses and fences and clotheslines, was set among solid rocks breaching from the earth. It was as if a pod of whales had surfaced just as the ocean turned to land, and then a village was built on their granite backs. By the weathered fishing shacks were rusted anchors like claws and broken traps and hills of coiled line. Come spring, wildflowers appeared by the clapboard church. The priest said mass. A woman drew back a curtain. A man hanged himself by the bridge. Travelers passing through agreed it was the prettiest earthly spot, snapping pictures as if gripped by palsy, nearly slipping off the rocks into the frigid waves. Late summer, a man and woman were making love under the eaves of a garishly painted house that looked out on the lighthouse, green light flashing, when a feeling suddenly passed into them, a feeling unrelated to their lovemaking, in direct physical opposition to it, an electrical charge so strong that they could taste it, feel it, the hair standing up on their arms just as it does before lightning strikes. And the fishermen felt it too, as they went to sea and returned, long ago resigned to the fact that you can do nothing to stop the ocean or the sky from what it will do. Now they too felt the shove and lock of some invisible metallic bit in their mouths, the feeling of being surrounded by towering waves. Yes, something terrible was moving this way. There was a low ceiling of clouds, an intense creeping darkness, that electrical taste. By the lighthouse, if you had been standing beneath the flashing green light on that early September night, in that plague of clouds, you would have heard the horrible grinding sound of some wounded winged creature, listened to it trail out to sea as it came screeching down from the heavens, down through molecule and current, until everything went silent. I brought in Michael Paterniti, I guess in part because it's related to Pitt, just that because I read him and I didn't realize I was reading him before I came here, and then when I came here we read him in workshop and read that piece in particular, and it really blew me away because he has this way of imagining, or it feels like imagining, but it's not. Like, it's still grounded in nonfiction. It's still nonfiction, but it's so well researched that it feels so organic and natural. And I think I look at his work very much as a sort of thing that I will always be striving for. Like, there's no way I'm at that yet, but I will always be getting to that point where he's positioning himself as a narrator, but also teaching the reader something, which I think is the mark of excellent nonfiction. And so I brought that piece in because I think it was one of the first pieces that I read here at Pitt where it stuck with me so deeply that I don't know, it's one of those pieces I can't shake, and I think those are the ones that we keep returning to as writers that we look to, and so maybe someday I'll be able to write something like that. But it influences my writing in part because I try to use that imagining, but in a productive, truthful way in nonfiction. So, like, you know, if you talk to him about how he may have written that piece, and like it feels so, you know, like he probably read newspaper clippings to see like what were those things that were happening at that time, and he interviewed the people in the town, but it feels just like this is the story. And so I think that in my work I'm trying more to think about imagining and speculation and how that can be productive in works of nonfiction while also staying super rooted in the tradition of like good journalism, I guess. I guess that there are three things that I think I've really distilled from my time here that have been funny because different professors, like all the professors I've worked with in different unique ways, have directed me to these lessons. And the first one, I guess, is that it's really important to tell the story that you're dying to tell. Like, we as writers have to be writing what our passion is, and not in this like cheesy metaphysical way, but like it is obvious when you're telling a story and your heart's not in it. Like, we have to be passionate about that story. And so I think that was a really important lesson. And it seems so simple. Like, I think actually all of the lessons seem really simple on the surface, but to have working writers affirm them and, you know, sort of guide me to those lessons in a way where I feel like I'm kind of equal to them, sort of, was really helpful for me. So the first one was like, write your passion. The second thing was sort of, I guess, it ties very much in with the third is to let the world say no. Like, you have to go out and, like, your work isn't going to get out into the world unless you put it out there. You know, like, I could write a million things and, you know, they could be in my computer hard drive or whatever, but unless I offer it to editors or if I pitch it to magazines or whatever, like, nobody can stop it from being produced except for me, really, because I'm the one who has to do that work. And that kind of pairs in with that third one, which is like, we have to do the work. You have to finish it. Like, you have to finish, if you have a project that you believe in, you have to finish what you start. Because again, like, you can't necessarily publish like half a book, I mean, because that's not how it works. Like, so, and for some people, the goal is not necessarily publication, and that's fine. But for me, coming in, I really wanted to understand, like, what does it look like to be a working writer? I personally don't anticipate going into academia, and so I really wanted to know, like, what are the biggest sort of things to take away from an MFA program? And I think those really are that, like, you have to just do it, like, do the thing, and then see what happens, and you know, you can't take rejection personally. That's a hard lesson to absorb, and that doesn't mean that it gets easier necessarily, but by continually practicing and putting your work out, you know, it gets not easier, but it gets more routine to say, like, okay, you know, this pitch didn't fly, but I feel confident that I have the tools in my toolkit because of the work that I've done here to, you know, go to the next one or pitch this other project or whatever. So I guess that those are the biggest things, and I feel now that I'm in my about to be in my final semester and, like, going out into the workforce, I feel really well equipped because of those lessons. And again, they seem really basic, like, write what you love and do the work and, you know, just keep trying. But I don't know, they're really formative. This is from an older piece called Skye Luck. Do you know your ghost selves? Everyone has many ghost selves, some more unnerving than others. The shadow of who you could have become had you taken that job or not, had you married that guy or definitely not, had you gone to that school or regrettably not. Yeah. I suspect my most haunting ghost self currently resides in Tucson, Arizona. A classroom of 11-year-olds would be watching her at the board, most of them at least, and she'd be explicating Latin sentence structure. Or maybe she'd be sitting in the back of the classroom circling 4 out of 5 for eye contact and 5 out of 5 for memorization while listening to a boy's fluctuating pitch recite the Gettysburg Address in a public speaking class. She would attend faculty meetings. She would use Sundays not to attend church or nurse a hangover or rise early for a morning run, but to lesson plan. She would become an expert in adolescent handwriting analysis and would struggle less with mediocrity than with the overwhelming sense of double-edgedness, to feel both ill-qualified yet well-suited to her job, that she loved the city in which she was born but feared staying in it, as if there were something inherently wrong with home for years or generations. Nothing would really be wrong with this. Nothing was wrong with this when I decided to leave it, but it is here that the paths of my ghost self and true self diverge, despite my body being supported by entirely risk-averse bones. That ghost self teaches they're still mutedly happy, on the cusp of something new but never quite reaching it, because it never felt like the time was right, that it wouldn't be prudent to do anything else. Excuses were as easy to come by as the sheep I would see in those highlands of Scotland.